So today we've got a 2010 SRX second generation. It's having some problems with the window mechanism on the driver's side front. It is no longer autoing up and down, and it is only moving about 1.5 inches every time you press the button. As you can see, the window will come down with repeated pushes, and it goes up the same way. So what we're going to need to do is replace the motor inside the door today, and I'll take you step by step through that process. Alright, so the motor is located inside the door itself, along with the regulator. The regulator is what slides the window up and down in the track system. Basically, the motor is what turns it. We're going to have to take off the door panel on the interior side. It is held in place with 2 screws, and they are accessible through the switch control area, which is right here. It pops off. There's no screws. There are clips. The clips are fairly snug in this back section through here, so you're gonna have to apply a little bit of force to pull this panel straight off. I'm gonna have to shut the camera off to do that with 2 hands. Okay, so I just pried straight up, and this back corner can be a little bit tricky. I wanted to show you what the clips look like, so you know you're not going to break anything. They just pull straight off, straight up, and out of the way. Now once you get those loose, you'll be looking at 2 number 3 Phillips heads mounted in the door. Let me back off so you can see where that's located. And you're going to take those, obviously take those 2 screws out, and that's going to free up the panel. Okay, so the screws are removed. Now the only thing holding the panel onto the door itself is a series of body screws that are mounted inside the door skin all the way along this trim edge. They can be removed by simply prying with some force straight out, and they will start to let go as you go around. You're going to want to work your way around the door panel, removing each one with some gentle pressure until you've released all of them, which I've done here. Now, there's a lip that lays in to the top of this trim piece where it connects to the door itself. You're going to lift straight up on the door panel itself, and it's going to come clear. Now, the door panel is loose from the door. The only thing holding it in is this wiring harness here and this cable connector here. Okay, I'm going to try to get a close-up here. This yellow cable comes through the skin and attaches to the door handle itself. What you're going to want to do is, with a very firm pull the yellow clip off. There's a small groove in there that will allow that cable to come out, and you're going to lift the cable off. That's going to leave this connector, which has a handle. The handle releases. Alright, the handle releases with some force. And you're going to push it all the way forward. The connector is still going to be a little snug. You'll have to work it up and down just a little bit, and then it will let go. At that point, your door panel is completely loose from the vehicle. So you are now looking at your insulation, your weather shield. It's a piece of black plastic that is covering the hole. You're going to need to take this off. It's got a little gummy substance behind it. You're going to want to gently take this panel off, trying to leave that intact so that you can reuse it. I'll go ahead and do that, and then come back. Okay, we've got the skin off. Now the next thing we want to do is remove the regulator itself. The motor is mounted to the regulator. In order to do that, we're going to have to loosen the clamps that hold the regulator to the glass. There are 2 bolts that effectively hold the clamps together, and we're not going to remove the bolts, we're just going to loosen them. They are located one on either side as part of the regulator. The regulator is this black assembly here, and the clamps are inset inside of here, and the clamp itself is yellow. You'll see the piece of yellow plastic when you get into this. I'm not sure this video camera is going to show it, but you want to loosen that bolt, and let me back out so you get a reference. And you're going to want to loosen the one on the other side. Here is the regulator, and here's the second clamp. And if you look up into the door itself, you'll see the yellow plastic, which once again this camera's not going to show you. So you just want to loosen those two. They're 10 millimeter. You do not want to remove them. There should be enough friction on the glass that it's not going to drop. But if you're uncomfortable with that, you can apply some tape or something like that. Alright, so that is now loosened, and we are now ready to remove the bolts that secure the regulator itself. We want to unplug the motor before we do that. We don't want to strain the wiring. So this assembly is what we're after. This is the motor that mounts to the regulator, this being the other side of the regulator. So the wiring harness obviously is attached right here. Takes another firm pull, and it's disconnected. Now we are ready to remove the regulator itself. It is secured with 4 bolts. One is a hanger here for the left side, and then one is a hanger for the right side. And you can see they have a little bit of a different finish. They're a little shinier. And then the through bolts that have to be completely removed are located here and here, and you can tell that because they make a straight line from the regulator down to the bolt, regulator down to the bolt. So go ahead and take those tube loose on the bottom, completely remove them, and then loosen the 2 shinier hanger bolts on the top. And I'll do that and come back. Okay, so I've removed the bottom 2 bolts. Now I've loosened the 2 hangers. Now at this point you have a couple options. You can connect the wiring harness back to the door and retract the window an inch, and you'll be able to slide the regulator out. Or you may go ahead and remove all 4 the top 2 bolts on the regulator, the hanger bolts themselves, and you'll be able to affect the same thing. But a note here is if you don't retract the window at this point, you will still have to reinstall the regulator when we're finished. So it's a good idea to go ahead and just reconnect the main harness, the motor, and turn the car back on. Press the button 1 time, drop it an inch or so, and then it'll be set. Okay, so I've lowered the window 1 inch and then disconnected the harness again, and you can see the glass is in place. The hangers are no longer holding it. It is in place on its own, but the clamps themselves in the regulator have dropped. Once again, I don't think the video camera is going to show that, but you may see the yellow clamp has dropped. So we are ready to actually remove the regulator itself, which you're going to want to just loosen it up and drop it. And then remove 1 bolt that I forgot. That one attaches for the motor bracket. So we're ready to take that off. And I forgot to disconnect the motor a second time, so we wanted to make sure that's loose. You can see we're hanging by the bracket now. Alright, now this part I'm going to need 2 hands, so I'm going to have to stop the camera. Basically, you're going to take the regulator from the left side and cross it over to the right side so that they're lined up together, and then you can fish the assembly out of the hole, which will be our next step. So I'm going to shut off the camera and do that, and I'll join you again. Alright, so I've got the 2 regulator halves put together. I've kind of fished them back and to the left a little bit, And the regulator assembly now is free of the car. You can see the panel. Then you want to find a nice flat surface. And you're going to want to flip the assembly upside down. And that is the regulator assembly with the motor, inverted, upside down. These brackets at the top is where the glass sits on both sides, and it slides up and down, as you can see. Now, to remove the motor itself, you've got number 3 Phillips heads on the back of that plate. So we're going to need to remove those. Now you'll also notice, if you're working on more than one, there is an L stamped on this particular one, and that lets us know that we are in fact working with the driver's side or left. They are different. The left and the right are reverse of each other, so be sure to pay attention to that. Now, the motor itself is still attached to the plate. There's a friction fitting on this bar that passes through the center. That's part of the motor assembly. So we're going to want to tap that out, but we don't want to hit it with anything too harsh. If we're going to reuse that motor, it could damage the bearing inside. So we want to use a soft hammer or a piece of wood or something along those lines, just to give it a little wrap and free it up. In this particular case, motor's shot, so we don't really care, and it will come free just like that. Now we are ready to replace the motor, and that is the motor assembly with a new one. Let me get that and we'll continue.